Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the second semi-final day of the Victory Road World Cup of Pokemon VGC, sponsored by Elgato. My name is Ben Kiriakou, joined here by Costa Dynamos. Costa, we just had a great match between two great competitors here, and the Pokemon that I want to talk about right now is that Weezing that just shut down every Pokemon's ability. So for the people that didn't manage to join us for the last match, could you give us a quick rundown of what just happened in that last game?
Okay, I'm going to try to summarize it as best as I can then, okay? So, if you have any problems with weather matchups, just bring a Cantonian Weezy and you're sorted. Because that's essentially what we saw from Dienmo right there. Masterclass with having Zacian on the side to completely reset and reactivate that Intrepid Sword ability and essentially nullify any opponent intimidates is just so powerful. And we saw that with that Zacian versus Kyogre matchups, and it was phenomenally played from Cassie. Hats off to him. Of course, huge props as well to Chang for trying to be able to do the best that they could. It's just that Cassie was that one step further ahead every single time. And MVP of that set, honestly, for me, was that Cantonian Weezing.
Definitely. I was just the last point before we move on to our next match coming up here today. I do love it when you're having Sarina on the field and still able to grassy glide, which is, I think, one of the key points in the last game. But of course, without further ado, that is one game to Spain, no games yet to China as we go into our second match here today. We are going to be showcasing all of the matches between China and Spain. So buckle up. We are going to move right on for the match between Manuel and Chengfu coming up right now. And to start with, we'll get to introduce these players. Starting off with Manuel, the player from Spain, rocking that Kyogre Incineroar, Rillaboom Zapdos, Mimikyu, and Amoonguss.
Very interesting team components here. We've got that Mimikyu with the Zapdos as well. Zapdos has actually been proven quite a few times right now in this current meta to be a very good anti-Zacian Pokemon, as it does carry not only that static ability, which has the chance to fully paralyze any opposing Pokemon that come into contact with it, but more importantly, it has that Rocky Helmet, and it can even have access to Roost. So you just met essentially with the Zapdos that every time you try to damage it, you are susceptible to a chance of being fully paralyzed. And having that Mimikyu on the side with the Amoonguss is quite fascinating because you're able to have that kind of setup for Trick Room just in case your opponent has that hyper offensive full speed situation going for themselves, even maybe having that Whimsicott too. So quite interesting, and questionable to see what kind of training in speed this Kyogre has. But of course, it is going to be piloted by Manuel Barea. You see his accomplishments are definitely well known in the Victory Road circuit. He is the only 7-0 player heading into top 4, which is definitely worth mentioning, and he is on fire when it comes to his form.
Definitely is, and a solid team like this Kyogre build here, where we see the Pokemon a little bit more bulky and able to exchange hits a little bit more, stay on the field for a little bit longer, piloted by a skilled player, is always a joy to watch, and something that you can always take something from. But of course, Chengfu is Manuel's opponent from China. He's going to be coming in here with a Calyrex, Shadow Rider, Incineroar, Rillaboom, Rapid Strike, Urshifu, Nihilego, and Whimsicott. So a much more aggressive team, maybe centered a little bit more on doing as much damage as quickly as possible, gaining those boosts with Grim Neigh and Beast Boost potentially from Calyrex and the Nihilego as well, and boosting speed with the Whimsicott. I'm going to be interesting to see how the Urshifu is trained as well from Chengfu, because in the rain afforded by that Kyogre, if it's in Tailwind, or maybe it's boosted up in speed by something like a Choice Scarf, maybe boosted in power with something like a Choice Band or a Mystic Water, could be in the rain doing a lot of damage, could be striking first, and of course wouldn't be able to be protected against from those surging strikes. So it could be quite a key Pokemon in this matchup, and could be something that we really have to look out for, especially with Mimikyu on Manuel's side, being able to block the first hit, but not the second nor the third hits.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think it's a quite interesting interaction that we do have to take note of, like you said, Ben. So going into this matchup then, as we were just kind of talking about Manuel's team, we did mention that viability of going for the Trick Room versus any sort of hyper-offensive team, which of course so happens to be kind of Chengfu's strategy in this round. So how do you think, or essentially which Pokemon do you think may be key components to this? I'm currently looking at Mimikyu and that Calyrex on either side, to be honest.
I definitely agree, and you know, there's a lot of things that Calyrex has to be worried about for Chengfu. I mean, you know, you've got to get your big attacks landed on Manuel's side, and Manuel has so many tools like Mimikyu, Rillaboom. He's got Amoonguss and Incineroar, which really are great options to take damage from anything that Chengfu has. So really, it's going to be how in the early game is Chengfu going to be able to put that pressure on, break some of the defenses, maybe knock out at least one Pokemon, and stop Manuel from having any switch potentials. I think the onus is on Manuel to just keep his Pokemon alive, maybe get a Trick Room up if he can, and get himself in a position where he's going first. Which, if he's able to do that with this Mimikyu and Rillaboom coming out here, he looks like he could be in quite a strong position, I think.
Yeah, and of course we are going to be seeing it from Manuel's point of view, if you weren't already aware of it. So in this scenario, Ben, we do have that potential of setup, like we were talking about with the Mimikyu, with regards, of course, to the Trick Room. But Nihilego, on the other hand, it is quite nice to be able to set up a Meteor Beam, you know, get that +1 special attack and deal so much damage, or even potentially break that disguise off of the Mimikyu. But it doesn't exactly like staring down this Rillaboom that could deal so much damage to it just from the get-go, plus that priority.
No, most Nihilegos are trained to be able to take a Grassy Glide, so could be able to take it, but in the meantime it's going to have to take a Fake Out for its trouble, so no move coming out there from the Nihilego. Grassy Glide coming out from Chengfu's Rillaboom, and being able to knock out the disguise, so to speak, from that Mimikyu, so going to take a little bit of damage, and more importantly going to be able to take damage next turn as Trick Room goes up, and Manuel getting into that position that we talked about already, where Trick Room is in play, and now Manuel's definitely in the driver's seat. So, you know, really looking at this position, it's going to be quite difficult for Chengfu to actually get some traction here. He has got priority from the Grassy Glide. He has got the ability to switch his Pokemon and maybe bring in a Moongus. He has got the ability to, of course, U-turn with his own Rillaboom, maybe do a little bit of chip damage to Rillaboom on Manuel's side of the field. And so I think this is going to be the early game pivoting, setting up for those Kyogre. Certainly from Manuel's perspective, Kyogre coming onto the field and being able to launch some big attacks. But to do that, you've got to do some damage, maybe remove the Rillaboom, maybe use something like a Will-O-Wisp on the Mimikyu to stop it doing quite so much damage.
Yeah, but we're actually going to be seeing on Chengfu's side, we're going to be seeing that Rillaboom switch out now for the Incineroar. Incineroar's going to be able to drop the attack of both the Rillaboom and that Mimikyu to -1, as Chengfu's Nihilego will be going for that Protect. In this scenario, of course, we do see the interaction that Will-O-Wisp cannot affect any sort of fire type and burn them, and the U-turn play from that Rillaboom into the Incineroar, able to go ahead, get that tiny bit of chip damage. But guess what, Ben? Here we go. Kyogre is gonna have that very free switch in right now.
Yeah, and you know, perfect opportunity for Manuel to bring in the Kyogre. Rillaboom leaves the field, and yeah, Kyogre definitely wants to enter the field, especially when it's facing down two Pokemon that would be easily knocked out by an Origin Pulse or a Water Spout, depending on what moves Manuel has on his side of the field. Usually these sort of compositions do favour Origin Pulse because the Kyogre wants to stay on the field a little bit longer. So now the question is, you know, how do you get the Rillaboom in safely if you're Chengfu? How do you maybe throw down a little bit of power control, maybe with Parting Shot onto the Kyogre to stop it doing quite so much damage? And of course, with Nihilego just protecting, Chengfu definitely has a weakened slot, so to speak, that the Kyogre can quite easily try to start targeting down. Mimikyu not really offering too much pressure, so I wouldn't be surprised to see that switching out. Didn't even get to the end of my sentence, Costa, before it did, and in favour of the Rillaboom coming in.
Exactly. As an Lido is going to be following suit immediately after, switches out for Chengfu's Rillaboom of their own. Kyogre wanting to go for the protect here, but I'm not sure how well it's going to work out for it in the subsequent turn, as at least for now, it was able to avoid that fake out from the Incineroar, but it is now susceptible to not only a fake out, but also a direct damage from a grass type move from the Rillaboom on Chengfu's side.
Yeah, and now you've got sort of conflicting fake outs potentially. I think the real question is how is this Incineroar trained? Because if this Kyogre is trained a little bit to be a little bit slower to take advantage of the Trick Room, and maybe that Incineroar is trained a little bit faster so it can maybe throat chop Snarls or do something like that to protect the Calyrex on Chengfu's side of the field. Maybe the Kyogre goes first in Trick Room and is able to knock it out or at least do some serious damage to it before it's able to launch out a parting shot, which would leave Rillaboom free to fake out Rillaboom on the opposing side of the field.
But we see Rillaboom on Manuel's side is actually going to be moving first. It goes for the fake out. No priority moves from Chengfu's side of the field. Just that very slow Incineroar going for the parting shot, able to underspeed the Kyogre, drop its special attack down to -1, as that's quite good right now. At least from Chengfu's side, you want to try to reduce that damage output as much as possible on this Kyogre, and we did get a bit of a sneak peek. We saw that it did have those leftovers as an item, a bit of an indication to a potential calm mindset, as Chengfu does bring in that Nihilego instead, and there it is, ladies and gents, the calmest of minds going off from this Kyogre. It's going to be able to bring its special attack up, now back to neutral, whilst also giving itself that +1 in special defense.
Yeah, and I think like Nihilego is not really the Pokemon that's important, nor Incineroar really in the matchup. It all comes down to, I think, Rillaboom on Chengfu's side of the field. If that's able to launch out some big attacks into the Kyogre, which you'll definitely need to do in order to do damage to it, Kyogre on these sort of archetypes being very, very bulky, that's going to be the key to the matchup. And once the Kyogre's dealt with, then Nihilego is going to be able to do a lot to Rillaboom and Mimikyu and so on, and Incineroar if Manuel's decided to bring that to this matchup. And so, you know, we see that protecting here, and it's really going to be a case of how does the Kyogre navigate around the grass type moves that Rillaboom has to offer.
Well, so far it seems like it is not trying to, as it is still there. Goes for the Origin Pulse, does connect with that Rillaboom. Over on Chengfu's side, Rillaboom on Manuel's side is going to be going for the U-turn, not quite enough to pick up any KO to try to save this Kyogre from any sort of grass-type moves if Chengfu did try to go for that. But on Manuel's side, that pivot will allow them to go ahead, bring that Incineroar in, and most importantly, drop that attack from the Rillaboom, being able to drop it down now to -1 of its attack. It's not going to be dealing as much damage as it originally would have. We see the drum beating reveal, signature move of that Rillaboom. It's going to be dealing a lot of damage, but doesn't pick up any sort of KOs, whilst actually dropping the speed of this Kyogre down to -1. So if the Trick Room can be reset, this is quite nice for Manuel's Kyogre, which may even underspeed the Incineroar on Chengfu's side this time.
Yeah, I think we've just seen the grassy terrain leave the field. I think that was the Trick Room leaving the field now. So a well-timed drum beating, I think. Kyogre now at just over half of its health, and a combination of grassy terrain and leftovers recovery probably takes it out of range for a drum beating, maybe. But of course, now that you have to worry about the Incineroar being on the field, it's got fake out it has access to, but could either drum beating or meteor beam be enough to knock out this Kyogre? I think is the real question here, or more to the point, can the Kyogre survive? Because if it can, and it can be able to knock out this Nihilego this turn, then the Incineroar and the Rillaboom on Manuel's side of the field really are kind of free now of any particular threats to them.
Yeah, but the Rillaboom's going to be switching out on Chengfu's side for their own Incineroar, able to drop the Incineroar on Manuel's side to -1 of its attack. I don't think that's going to be coming into play as much, even though I guess a bit there with the chip damage from that fake out onto its arch nemesis on the other side. But more importantly, this Nihilego has not been checked right now. It is going for the Meteor Beam. It has that proc of the +1 special attack there, Power Herb interaction. The Meteor Beam connects, Ben. It is going and targeting that Incineroar. It picks up the straight raw KO, was able to go ahead and allow itself to get boosted up now due to that Ultra Beast boost to +2 of its special attack. This Kyogre is going to try to retaliate. It goes for the Origin Pulse. It connects with both of its targets. Don't forget it's at neutral right now. It's not enough to pick up the KO on the Nihilego, but more than enough to do so on that Incineroar. And we have a straight up trade of KOs from both of these trainers.
Yeah, nice training there on the Nihilego from Chengfu side of the field. Could be a consequence of Manuel running a little bit more of a bulky Kyogre. We've seen, at least you can see from there, from the HP range on Manuel's side of the field, it has got maximum investment in its health HP stat. So Mimikyu coming in here could be quite interesting actually from Manuel's side of the field. That Nihilego did not survive on much at all. Mimikyu can't be affected by Fake Out because of that ghost typing, and if it does have Shadow Sneak, will be able to dispatch the Nihilego if Chengfu doesn't see that coming and be able to take it off the field. I think now that the Incineroar has left the field as well, and if that Nihilego soon follows, Manuel may have a route to victory without the Kyogre and maybe using the Mimikyu and Rillaboom to dispatch the last Pokemon on Chengfu's side of the field, certainly with that Shadow Sneak, and especially if Calyrex Shadow Rider is in the back for Chengfu, and he's been holding it back for the entirety of the game so far. The combination of super effective and neutral priority attacks would definitely be enough to finish off the game for him.
But here we go, Shadow Sneak reveal from the Mimikyu, more than enough to pick up the K on the Nihilego. It is out of this game. One drum beating following soon after, doesn't quite pick up the KO, does deal a lot of damage, whilst being able to drop its speed by 1. Ice Beam comes out from this neutral, Kyogre picks up the KO. Of course, it was well within range to do so, which does leave Chengfu now down to their last 2 remaining Pokemon, if not actually last one, I think.
No, last Pokemon.
That's
last
it,
Pokemon.
yeah.
So we'll see what that last Pokemon is coming in for Chengfu. I don't believe it's been revealed, Costa, so far in this game. We'll see if it's that Calyrex, and if it is, probably going to be able to get a double KO here. Here it comes out onto the field. Mimikyu does need to be boosted by a Life Orb to have the opportunity to knock out a Calyrex from full health, and so this Calyrex is free to go for a certainly an Astral Barrage into both of these Pokemon on this in this position, but with grassy terrain just being reset and Rillaboom definitely in the back, you know, if you knock out the Mimikyu, then Rillaboom comes in and Grassy Glide goes off. I'm really struggling with that term these days. And then the Calyrex doesn't have enough health to survive on, certainly not. You know, it's questionable whether the Astral Barrage from that range would have been able to knock out the Kyogre, which is so well known for how bulky it is on the special side. And so, yeah, I think that forfeit. Don't reveal any information. Don't reveal if it's a Focus Sash or a Life Orb or Choice Specs or whatever other item that the Calyrex could be able to hold. Just forfeit there, hold your information, and hopefully use it to better effect in Game 2. And speaking of, I think, you know, we've really got to go back to the drawing board if you're Chengfu and find a way to deal with this Mimikyu earlier in the game and stop that Trick Room.
I was going to say, Ben, let's not forget that the Kyogre did have that Calm Mind special defense boost as well. So that Calyrex would have required the critical hit to connect and somehow be able to circumvent around that Rillaboom and stall out those grass terrain turns like you well mentioned there. So going into this game 2, of course, Chengfu is going to have to try to readapt their strategy there. Do you think there's any sort of range for this Urshifu or even maybe that Whimsicott to be brought into this game too?
I'd definitely like to see that sort of switch up there. I mean, Urshifu would be able to deal a little bit better with the water moves coming out from Kyogre and certainly use them to their advantage. Without the rain on the field, I think Mimikyu is fairly safe from a Surging Strikes, but it certainly could be a double up potential there, where maybe Grassy Glide and Surging Strikes. Maybe you just break the disguise, do a bit of damage to Mimikyu and remove it, so that when you get to that end game position, you have the Calyrex on the field, and it can do a little bit more work for you without fear of the Mimikyu being in play. But I don't think we're seeing any switch-ups here from game one, just that Rillaboom and Mimikyu, with Rillaboom and Nihilego hitting the field.
Yeah, same leads, same as, of course, game one. Now going into game two, we did see, of course, in the previous game that the Trick Room definitely was set. We saw the interaction of Manuel's Rillaboom actually moving first, going for the fake out at least. As to be honest, I don't think Chengfu's Rillaboom tried to go for that fake out as well. So it'll be quite interesting to see the interactions. And there it is. We actually see Rillaboom on Chengfu's side move first. Oh, no fake out from Manuel's. Just trying to go ahead and take advantage of any sort of pivot action going on there, but we do see the Sludge Bomb going ahead. It does break that disguise on the Mimikyu, but that does not stop it from setting the Trick Room up.
Yeah, I really like that adjustment there from Chengfu, using his Rillaboom, which is almost certain to be trained faster given the two compositions that we have opposing each other in this match, and using that to break the disguise. Yeah, you're never going to stop the Trick Room if you're Chengfu, but what you do have to do is make your opponent have to give something up in order for the Trick Room to go up, and in this case it was Rillaboom's ability to pivot that was sacrificed, and Mimikyu sacrificed its disguise. Now the Trick Room's up, and Manuel actually has to actively change his position in order to get Kyogre onto the field.
Yes, we're going to be seeing the Rillaboom now opting to go for that U-turn. It is going to be successfully getting that pivot action going, actually bringing in the Incineroar. So Manuel may be anticipating a Sludge Bomb going into that slot if, of course, the Nihilego were to try to target into it. More importantly, the Intimidate is going to be able to drop that Rillaboom's attack now down to -1. We know that its main source of damage output when it comes to grass type moves is this drum beating, so it tries to go for it. It's not going to be dealing that much damage, but it is actually going to be dropping the speed of this Incineroar, so making it even more viable under Trick Room. As Nihilego, on the other hand, tries to go for the Meteor Beam. It's charging up that spatial cosmic power. It's giving itself that +1 in special attack, and it is waiting to successfully connect, which it does, Ben, thankfully for Chengfu's side, into the Incineroar slot. Oh my lord, it could have just completely ignoring the fact that the Rillaboom was there. It said, listen, Manuel, if you want to try to go for any of those switch ups, I'm gonna catch you out, and that is exactly what happened. So a very strong play from Chengfu, able to go ahead and skyrocket that special attack up to +2 for the Nihilego.
Yeah, I really like this. I think the one thing that we missed from that turn was the Mimikyu, I think, going for a Will-O-Wisp onto the Rillaboom on Chengfu's side of the field. I think it didn't connect, which may be why we missed it going off, because no effects happened there. But you're absolutely right, Costa. The switch up move U-turn as it was this turn could have gone into the Kyogre, could have gone into the Incineroar, and I think once Manuel saw that the Will-O-Wisp had missed, decided to go into the Incineroar, because out of Kyogre and Incineroar, I think you usually go for the Kyogre to stay alive that turn. But yeah, a little bit more of a defensive turn coming out here from Chengfu, rightly so, protect on that Nihilego.
Makes a lot of sense, as this Mimikyu is going to try to prioritize that Rillaboom down. Goes for the play rough. Connection of the Ice Beam does mean the Rillaboom is now out of contention of game 2. So the Nihilego absolutely ignored there. Manuel saying, listen, I know what my priorities are. Even though you are at +2 of special attack, very intimidating per se, Nihilego, Rillaboom could prove to be quite a problem, and we are still in Trick Room.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised actually to not see the Rillaboom going for a grassy glide there into the Kyogre, maybe predicting that the Kyogre would go for something like a protect that turn, and so trying to capitalize it off of that protection with a U-turn, maybe into the Mimikyu to pivot out into Incineroar or something else. As it turns out, Incineroar's coming onto the field, and we saw the result of Incineroar being on the field in the last game. Kyogre will be moving after it, so parting shot is definitely a risk here, but certainly an Origin Pulse won't go amiss, and especially if it is that Calyrex Shadow Rider in the back for Chengfu. Manuel doesn't mind if he gets an Origin Pulse off on Incineroar, Nihilego or Calyrex. It really doesn't matter so much. As long as he gets it off and connects, he's going to be doing good amounts of damage.
Yeah, no protects from here. We just see the fake out go into that Kyogre slot. Shadow Sneak dealing that tiny bit of chip damage just before being susceptible to this KO, which it actually avoids. It's able to survive on 6 HP there from that +2 special attack powered Nihilego. So not what you would actually expect. Of course, Sludge Bomb there hitting for neutral due to Mimikyu's Ghost Fairy typing.
Yeah, quite an interesting position now, because I think we're at the last turn of Trick Room now, and so the Mimikyu can be knocked out quite easily by the Incineroar, and maybe you sacrifice the Incineroar here if you're Chengfu to knock out the Mimikyu. That stops the potential of Trick Room and Shadow Sneak risk with presumably a Calyrex Shadow Rider in the back, and with that Nihilego boosted in a combination with the Calyrex and some waning turns, so to speak, on the rain, it's not going to last forever. It's still got a couple of turns left, but will be leaving the field soon enough. And so you could get into the position where you trade the Mimikyu for the Incineroar. Maybe you don't because of Origin Pulse misses, but let's say worst case you do. Then the Calyrex and the Nihilego could be in a really great position for the end game.
Yeah, Mimikyu tried to have its final stand there, went for that Shadow Sneak into the Nihilego. Incineroar was able to go ahead and dispatch it of this game too with that Throat Chop, whilst Kyogre, free as a daisy, goes for the Calm Mind boost there. It is now at +1 of both special attack and special defense, which does of course mean it's going to be able to tank that +2 special attack Sludge Bomb from the Nihilego that bit better, as it's able to get, of course, that residual HP recovery due to the grass terrain, as we are now outside of Trick Room.
Yeah, and I really like that play from Chengfu, kind of seeing the potential of Calm Mind coming and not protecting the Nihilego. I think that really capitalizes on a potentially defensive play from Manuel, and I guess you've got the opportunity, if Manuel did decide to go for the Origin Pulse, that it could miss on either target or maybe both. A little bit low odds, but you've always got to keep that in mind when you're making a little bit more of a risky play. Now we're out of Trick Room. The Incineroar is now really under pressure, really only there to stop the Rillaboom from going for or doing too much damage. If it's able to get a parting shot off, if it's able to maybe switch out, switch back in, bring that fake out pressure onto the field, and of course that Intimidate ability with it. The Nihilego does look like it's in range of a Grassy Glide, so quite a difficult position for Chengfu to be in. He's got to find a way to pivot out his Incineroar into Calyrex without taking any damage, maybe without losing the Incineroar, but that's going to be really, really hard to do without taking any unnecessary hits, so to speak.
I think Chengfu has to hope for an Origin Pulse miss right here, as they are going to be bringing in that Calyrex Shadow Rider. We see, of course, its ability activating as one, whilst Nihilego goes for the Protector, does not want to be susceptible to that Fake Out, which does try to target it down from the Rillaboom on Manuel's side. And here it is, ladies and gents, Origin Pulse. Does it connect with that? Oh my lord, it does not connect with that Calyrex Shadow Rider. So Chengfu's stars being counted and hopes and prayers turning out to be quite true there, and the Calyrex, that is so big that it's able to actually avoid the Origin Pulse.
Yeah, it is, but it's still going to be difficult to take out that Kyogre. I mean, between the two special attackers that you see on this field for Chengfu right now and the Incineroar in the back, there's not too many options really available to him. Of course, you do get the opportunity to maybe switch in the Incineroar here. That means you'll probably survive a Grassy Glide with the Nihilego from that Rillaboom, and a +1 Sludge Bomb is likely to knock out the Rillaboom. That takes away some of the threat to Calyrex, and if that Calyrex is carrying a substitute, you could maybe try to have a game plan where you substitute until you get an Origin Pulse miss. And then start going from the Astral Barrages from there. Maybe you've got access to Psyshock to circumvent that Calm Mind boost as well. So some options there for Chengfu, but I think Manuel's definitely in the better position out of the two players right now.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree, as the Incineroar will be able to come back onto the field right now. Grassy Glide tries to go into that slot, and Incineroar says no, whilst being able to drop its attack to -1. Sludge Bomb following up, enough to pick up the KO on the Rillaboom. So this at one point is quite good, but we just need to see if the Origin Pulse is going to connect from this Kyogre, even though that +3 Nihilito's there. We see a miss once again, Ben. Which slot did actually evade there? We saw that it was the Nihilito, Ben. So at this point, the Incineroar is out, but this Nihilito is at +3 of its special attack. It is not to be underestimated at all, even if this Kyogre does have that +1 special defense. Due to that Calm Mind, its reign is no longer on the field.
Yeah, so we saw that the Nihilego could survive that at full, so probably still in KO range here. I wouldn't be surprised if the Calyrex would be able to survive an Origin Pulse at the very least from full. So, you could see a combination of Sludge Bomb and Astral Barrage here. I still do think the consistent play for Chengfu, if he does carry Substitute, is to, carry on substituting and just wait for the opportunity. Whether Manuel plays defensively, or whether he goes for another Calm Mind, or whether he goes for the Origin Pulse, and you rack up the chances over 3 or 4 turns of the miss, especially with grassy terrain, being able to just heal back a little bit of that health that Substitute's taking away. And in the meantime, because of that miss on the Origin Pulse, Nihilego with its boosted special attack is going to do so much damage to the Kyogre, definitely going to put it in range of Astral Barrage.
Yeah, oh my lord, we the nastiest of plots being conducted on Calyrex Shadow Rider's side, taking pure advantage of that protect on the Kyogre. My lord, Chengfu is pulling out all of the stops right now and trying to force this game 3 so well. My lord, I think it's just something that you just have to just appreciate at this point, to how what kind of odds played out here. Oh my lord, we see a second nasty plot. I'm not sure what Chengfu's thinking about this time, Ben.
Yeah, I think that maybe revealing that bit of information when you don't need to might not be the correct move, but either way, Sludge Bomb doing about 50% to that Kyogre is going to take an Origin Pulse this time, going to be able to knock out the Nihilego, and in the time it's taken Chengfu to boost itself up with those 2 nasty plots, probably could have taken the KO on that Kyogre there. So maybe the first nasty plot on a defensive turn. Yeah, I can definitely get behind that. That's just a little bit of a read. Second one may be slightly greedy, but in this position, with the even with the leftovers recovery from this Kyogre, I don't think it's surviving a single target Astral Barrage, nor a Psyshock, nor probably those are the two more powerful options that Chengfu has available to him. So yeah, I think Manuel definitely going to have to be spending the time to think about what his game plan is going into game 3 here.
As Psyshock is the move of choice revealed from this +4 Calyrex Shadow Rider, more than enough to pick up the KO, as of course it does target the defense of the Kyogre rather than its special defense. So I feel like, Ben, it's got to be that Focus Sash on the Calyrex, surely. You don't commonly see every day such a courageous Calyrex Shadow Rider just going for that second nasty plot following that first one in that position. I mean, to be honest though, it didn't take that much damage, so it could either be a Focus Sash or a very bulky Calyrex Shadow Rider, which is not common at all.
I think it's probably more likely that the Kyogre isn't trained too heavily in its special attack. I mean, Kyogre has to sacrifice something to be able to get as bulky as it is, as you see in these sort of compositions, and so yeah, usually special attack is where the investment is dropped, and you end up with a Kyogre, especially when it's carrying Origin Pulse, not Water Spout. We're so used to seeing how much damage Water Spout does from full health. You kind of know that the Kyogre is probably going to knock out pretty much everything from one. Origin Pulse is quite a bit weaker than that, and so we end up in this position where the Kyogre is probably a little bit less invested in special attack, and it's got some weaker moves, and that really compounds. And Calyrex is actually not as frail as we like to think it is, because normally we see it getting targeted by 4 times super effective moves, of course. But going into this, I mean, I really like the adjustment that Chengfu made going into this, going into game 2, being able to actually force Manuel to be able to trade rather than just get Trick Room up for free. And I think, I don't really see too much switching up here from both players. I think what we're going to see more likely is how they actually approach the turns and what moves they lock in being different. And how Manuel, maybe if he decides to, I don't know, like hard switch into the Kyogre instead of getting a fake out going straight away, or trying to get a fake out going, he could get his position and Trick Room up safely turn 1.
And like you said, Ben, we do actually see the same leads, no change-ups from both of these trainers. So, of course, we saw in the previous games a bit of a change of interactions between the choice of moves. What are you feeling will be the case in this one?
I think Trick Room's got to go up regardless for Manuel, so I think that's the only move here that's locked. I quite like what Chengfu did before with a little bit of fake out pressure. Wouldn't mind seeing maybe him trying to go for a Grassy Glide followed by Meteor Beam into the Mimikyu. See if you could break the disguise with that and then knock it out with a Meteor Beam next turn, but not going to see that, just the fake out coming out from Manuel's Rillaboom into the Nihilego.
Yeah, so we can actually be seeing an exact mirror situation of Game 1 being reflected onto this Game 3. The disguise is broken due to that Grassy Glide, and yes, we once again have the Trick Room being set up, so the exact same turn spelt out from Game 1 now onto Game 3.
Yeah, but I think, the difference here now is one of those things with Pokemon. There's so many options for each turn, and we saw the result of what happened in as a series of choices in Game 1. Game 3, now that they've felt out their teams a little bit more, there's a little bit more field. I think we're going to be seeing something a bit different. I really like what Chengfu did before, putting pressure on Manuel's pivoting options, double targeting into that slot, because the Mimikyu isn't doing too much. Chengfu proved as well that he can get through the Kyogre without that Rillaboom, so maybe doesn't fear the Will-O-Wisp as much as he did in the first game, and that's why he switched it out into Incineroar before. But he's going to do the same as that previous game, bring in the Incineroar, try to take that Will-O-Wisp from the Mimikyu.
It's as if you predicted that was going to happen, Ben, as we're going to be seeing the Nihilego go for the Protect on Chengfu's side. It seems like it's back to basics from both of these players. The Will-O-Wisp once again trying to target down that Rillaboom slot, which is now that Incineroar, of course, due to that Fire-type immunity, not going to be able to work. And that Grass-type move did try to target down the Nihilego as well, but was only met with the Protect.
I was going to say, we've got 8 turns into this game, and we've finally seen a move that's different from Game 1. I think in Game 1, the U-turn came out from Rillaboom, and it was the Kyogre that came into this position. So I actually really like that Chengfu's, standing his ground on what he thinks is the best play here, because now he's in a much better position than he was in Game 1, and Manuel still has to position himself into a good place to get that Kyogre in. But to do that, he has to U-turn potentially first. He has to potentially take a Flare Blitz from the Incineroar. There's much more threats on Chengfu's side of the field and much less on Manuel's side of the field. And of course, Trick Room is ticking away. There's not too much time to take advantage of it.
And that is why Manuel said they are going to bring the Kyogre straight in as a switch and substitute that Rillaboom out for now. As Mimikyu right now going for the Shadow Sneak wants to be able to deal that bit of chip damage that may be necessary to put it within Grassy Glide range in future turns, as the Throat Chop comes out from the Incineroar, will be dealing some good neutral damage onto that Mimikyu. And guess what? Yes, we have the Cosmic Charge up of that Meteor Beam. Once again, we see the Power Herb proccing there, allowing that 2-turn move to join in as one. Meteor Beam connects once again, goes into the Mimikyu slot this time round, picks up the KO, and once again gives itself a very nice +1 boost from that beast boost, being able to accumulate straight up to +2 of its special attack.
Yeah, I really like this position now for Chengfu. Mimikyu going down, especially after the amount of Trick Room turns that have already gone, is really significant. Now that there is no opportunity for Manuel to go for another Trick Room, you've removed that Shadow Sneak risk, you've removed the Will-O-Wisp risk. You know that the Incineroar on your side of the field, if you're Chengfu, is going to be faster in Trick Room than that Kyogre, so you can opt for parting shots and such, and Rillaboom coming in may be able to stop that with its own fake out, and certainly the Kyogre's going to want to be launching out some big attacks here, but Chengfu's already taken so much time out of this Trick Room. All that needs to happen is a little bit of pivoting, a little bit more fake out, and Chengfu's going to be in a position outside of Trick Room again.
And we see that speed interaction where the Incineroar within Trick Room is going to be able to outspeed that Kyogre first, go for that parting shot, be able to bring that Kyogre down to -1 of its special attack. It, at the moment, has not got a Calm Mind boost going for itself. Chengfu, right now, just taking the time to try to think and properly assess the current board position of both of the trainers with all the little pieces, the intricate pieces and details, and try and predict what could happen in the next following turns, as they are going to be trying to consider which new Pokemon to be able to bring in, which, of course, will be that Rillaboom of their own, as Kyogre tries to go for the Origin Pulse. Of course, will not be able to connect with that Nihilego. It is hidden behind that Protect, but it does with the Rillaboom. It is at -1 special attack. It is a resisted move and potentially an Assault Vest. Rillaboom, as you can see, not doing any sort of damage there. The U-turn, on the other hand, being super effective. A bit of a parting gift from one Rillaboom to the other, allowing Manuel to be able to go ahead and bring in the Incineroar right now, have the Intimidate drop, but more importantly, have access to that fake out pressure.
Yeah, and I really like this sort of pivoting from Manuel, keeping those fake outs on the field and keeping the pressure on Chengfu. Even though Manuel has the Trick Room, doesn't have it for very long, but does have the Trick Room, he's just got to find a way to stop the revolving fake outs coming out from Chengfu's side of the field. He's kind of found a way to do that with a revolving fake out of his own. But now you've got a choice, right? You've got the fake out is fresh on Chengfu's side of the field, so you can either trade fake outs, and then you're wasting another turn of Trick Room, potentially the last, if I've counted correctly, or you use the Incineroar to stop the Rillaboom from getting the fake out, maybe knock it out with an Ice Beam, but then the Nihilego is free to do whatever it wants to do this turn. And so at this range of health, and especially after a parting shot, it's not going to fear too much the Origin Pulse from Kyogre. So yeah, difficult turn here for Manuel, and at quite a surprisingly good position at a glance here from Chengfu.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to be seeing the Rillaboom on Chengfu's side switch out for the Incineroar. Another Calm Mind actually being set up right now. If I'm not mistaken, is this the first Calm Mind or second, Ben?
I believe it's the first Calm Mind that we've had.
Yeah, apparently I'm not having a Calm Mind on my end, so I do apologize there. But yes, so Kyogre is going to be able to now bring its special attack up back to neutral, whilst having its special defense up to +1. And the Incineroar, more importantly, is now on the field, Ben.
It is, and yeah, that's quite difficult now, because fake out coming out from Chengfu's side of the field can stop that Kyogre in its tracks. Not going to be able to do too much this turn, but you know, a Power Gem from Chengfu's Nihilego is easily going to be enough to dispatch the Incineroar on Manuel's side of the field. If he goes for the Sludge Bomb, predicting the Rillaboom to come in, still could be able to pick up the knockout there on the switching. And of course, you could just go for the Sludge Bomb into the Incineroar slot if you're Chengfu, and just say, hey, I'm going to do some damage, and if you try to pivot or switch or get your fake out in, I'm going to profit off of the defensive nature of your play. And that's exactly what Manuel's doing, a little bit of a defensive play, bringing that Rillaboom in, trying to get the fake out. So we'll see if Chengfu saw this coming.
Exactly. So is Chengfu going to try to capitalize off of that? They've made some really good reads in previous games. Going for the fake out into that Kyogre does mean, of course, that it will flinch. And there it is, like you predicted, Ben. The Sludge Bomb going ahead, picking up that ridiculously good read of a KO and allowing this Nihilego to now be boosted up to +3 of its special attack. It's previously taken out the Mimikyu, which put itself up to +2. Now it's at +3, and it is out for some KOs. It's looking for them, and it's looking to try to push China back into this set versus Spain.
Yeah, and this is such a great position for the Nihilego to be in. It probably is going to be KO'd if Kyogre manages to launch an Origin Pulse into it this turn, but you know, with Incineroar on the field and no fake outs in the back for Manuel, Chengfu really only has to protect his Nihilego to stop any form of fake out, then power gem into the Incineroar. That'll knock it out, and it's Kyogre versus the world again. Of course, in the meantime, you've got the potential for parting shot. You could switch out into Rillaboom. There still is probably the Calyrex in the back for Chengfu as well, so likely that you'd still try to preserve that and bring it in as he has in the previous turns for you know, that late game Psyshock and potentially nasty plot strategy that he used in the previous turn. And here we go, start off the turn with Nihilego going for that protect.
Yeah, and Incineroar's going to be trying to target that slot, not obviously being able to do so. Origin Pulse will be coming out from this Kyogre. It is at neutral, let's not forget. And previously, it did pick up the KO from this range in the rain on this Incineroar, and it does not fail to do the exact same right now. Chengfu's Incineroar is now out for the count. And Chengfu now left to their last two Pokemon whilst the rain is now over then. So that Kyogre's not going to be able to profit as much off of those water type based moves, that Origin Pulse, as previously.
Certainly not. And you know, the secondary part of this is, you know, if Chengfu clicked the parting shot button, it wouldn't really have mattered how the turn played out. Either the Origin Pulse connects and the Incineroar goes down, as we saw it, and the Rillaboom comes in its own fake out, or the parting shot comes out probably last, especially with fake out coming out from Incineroar on Manuel's side of the field last turn. And then, you know, you bring in the Rillaboom, you get that fake out onto Kyogre, all good, knock out the Incineroar, no problem, with a +3 Nihilego. And then you're left with Kyogre versus 4 Pokemon. Or 3 or 4 Pokemon, regardless, and it's just too much of an uphill battle, I think, for this Kyogre to be able to deal with.
Exactly, as we're going to be seeing the fake out and that power gem going ahead and finishing off this Incineroar. So Chengfu is seeming to be running away with this set and once again putting China back into the race for the finals. So it may of course seem like it will end with Chengfu winning this set. So do you feel like Manuel slipped up in any sort of situation there, or it's just the fact that Chengfu played flawlessly in being able to accurately target down the Pokemon and checks that they needed to?
I think it's, you know, it's difficult to really say for sure. I mean, you could play this game, this matchup 100 times and get some slightly different result in each one, because it really does depend on how well you're able to pivot your Pokemon. Just before I finished that thought, Grassy Glide coming off onto the Kyogre, combination with a Sludge Bomb is going to be able to pick up the knockout. So Chengfu will be taking the game for China and evening up the scores. China versus Spain, 1 game apiece. And great job for both trainers there. But to finish the thought, Costa, I think the important thing was that U-turn coming out onto the Nihilego's protect and stopping the pivoting coming out from Manuel's side of the field. If he had the Kyogre out when Incineroar and Nihilego were on the field, he would have had a lot less. Chengfu would have had a lot less freedom to get that Nihilego going, and of course, being able to pick up the knockout on Mimikyu, which is a Pokemon that's less likely to protect than other Pokemon. And especially, in fact, actually thinking about the matchup, you had Incineroar, Rillaboom, and Mimikyu, which aren't able to protect. So you get this kind of position where you've got 3 Pokemon that are kind of defenseless defending Kyogre, which can't quite get itself going in the face of double fake outs and Rillaboom pressure and such very quickly. And so if you don't get that pivoting going, if you don't get that right as he did in game 1 and did really well, then you're going to struggle going into the following turns because you just don't have enough time in that trick room left and you're just not putting enough pressure on.
Do you think there could have been any proposal of being able to bring the Amoongus if you were Manuel? Would it have been able to fulfill any sort of role that was lacking in that game 3?
If you saw the Urshifu at all on Chengfu's side of the field, you definitely bring the Amoongus to the match. Without it being there, I think there's definitely potential argument for it, but I think a lot of the time with Amoongus in these sort of compositions, especially with Rillaboom and the threat of safety goggles on Incineroar, which we never saw the item of on Chengfu's side of the field, you could get into a position where you try to spore something and fail. And then you've got a dead slot because there's either a grass Pokemon or a Pokemon with safety goggles on your opponent's side of the field that you can't Rage Powder, you can't Spore. Maybe you can Pollen Puff, but it's still potentially not going to be doing too much. So I do think Manuel picked reasonable Pokemon at the very least. I think you make a good point, Costa, that Amoongus could have come, but I could definitely see why it didn't in this matchup.
And of course, that being said, ladies and gents, we see Chengfu being able to go ahead and triumph over Manuel. That 2-1 victory, that comeback from Manuel going ahead and winning that game 1 and already having the momentum on their side of the field. So China able to equalize so far 1-1. Of course, what we will be doing is, ladies and gents, we'll be going for a very short intermission break, and we will be right back with our third stream match of the day, apologies, which will be between Wang Zhuyang versus Max Gill. And just a note, just so you're all aware, ladies and gents, this is all in the exact order of which they were naturally played out in real life. So we are feeling all of the emotions naturally and anticipation from all of them. So get ready, get your snacks all sorted, and we'll be back in just a couple of moments.